Hey, everybody. We are in front of the mic with the Beyond the Books podcast brought to you by accountingdepartment.com. I'm your host, Kevin Dry, and today we are joined by Joy, our senior technology integration specialist here at ADC. Joy is the person who finds all the right applications that we need to function successfully, both internally and with clients. So today we're going to get a good look into what happens whenever we do find those applications and when we might need to pivot. So thank you so much for joining me today, Joy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. Excited to jump into it and learn more. So, normally we start these things off with a typical tell us about yourself. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, your role at ADC, how long you've been with the company, different things like that.
Sure. Well, to start off, my name's Joy Osich, also known as Osich Joy around here. I've been with accountingdepartment.com almost 16 years in August. And I started when my son was 3 and he graduates this May. So that's exciting. Prior to ADC, I did database management design, as well as some sales and, of course, accounting in various roles. My focus has always been technology, and I've loved technology coming in even as a bookkeeper. I remember the first time that I had Bill and Dennis see my inbox. They saw the categories for the first time, and now it's used across the company for the firm. So always love technology.
Awesome, love that. So, how has your role here evolved over the years? We appreciate all your years of service here. So, how has that kind of evolved over time?
Sure. Well, to give you an idea, it's been 15 years, so it's a lot of data there. So I'll break it down into some small sections. So when I moved into implementation from the bookkeeper role, I loved being able to work with clients. I was able to, it was very fast paced. I was able to learn a lot from them. You know, you learn a lot from clients of training 5 users versus training a client with 50 users. Really enjoyed that role and embraced it. I also love the technology side of that. So in implementation, back in the day, everybody in that department was responsible for managing the apps or, going out and demoing the apps, as well as we would make those decisions internally whether we were going to implement an app. And so we would go to conferences together. And I remember my very first conference, and I went to Bill and Dennis and I said, we have got to have a technology department. I think it's something we need. And so, at the time, our clients needed more solutions. We were getting bigger. We had more staff that needed support. And so I think it was a great idea, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely. And it's important to recognize those things and see those changes coming on the horizon. So, you mentioned the technology integration team here. Tell us a little bit about the evolution of ADC's tech integration team.
Sure. So originally, when I did talk to Bill and Dennis about starting a tech team, it wasn't on the books at the time, so to speak. And so it wasn't an option. So it was about in 2019 or 2018, actually. We actually hired a couple people in-house to really manage those client services projects and kind of help the teams, help the clients, onboard new technology. It wasn't enough, Kevin, and we still needed somebody to research the tech. So the implementation team was still maintaining that. It was in 2020 that I actually moved into the role of technology integration specialist. And since then, we have grown so much. We have, what do we have? We have 20 plus gurus. Those are our internal staff that actually are cheerleaders for each of our apps in our tech stack. In 2019, was it 2019? No, 21, sorry. It was 21, December 21, I actually brought in a tech specialist. And then the end of last year, I brought in another tech specialist and a part-time admin. So the team is growing and I couldn't be more happier.
Love it. Teamwork makes the dream work. And that's something we say here often at ADC. I know anytime I've ever needed help with any application here, I've been able to reach out to that guru team and they just get it like that. And there's definitely a sense of comfortability there where I can just reach out to a coworker. And so I'm really appreciative of the guru team and the tech integration team here. So what does the team do now, not only for our staff, but also our clients?
Sure. So Kevin, the gurus themselves, they support our staff. So internally, like you mentioned, if you have a problem, somebody can reach out. If you're having trouble syncing a system, they can reach out and get a solution right away. I think that that is one of the best things that we do. We help alleviate that stress in the moment, and it's a win for me whenever we can do that. In relation to our clients, we're a resource to them, no matter whether they're a client yet or they're a client for 15 years. So a lot of times clients will come through that proposal process and they'll have questions related to the technology that we're requesting they put in place. I'll hop on the phone with them. I'll discuss it with them, make sure that they understand that and they're comfortable from day one with that. One of my favorite things to do is hop in on the phone with a client who's been here 5 years. And initially, when they came in, they didn't want to move to that inventory system, but now they do. Love it because now my team gets to come in, we get to implement that system. It's a client I've worked with many times over the past years, and it's a really fun time for me to see that client growing and moving forward. So,
Now, what can other businesses do to stay up to date on the latest technology? Why is it critical to have a tech integration team or even a designated tech guru that can help out?
sure, that's a great question. I will say this, Kevin, technology changes. You know that, I know that. I mean, were we all ready for that email from Intuit that they were going to stop selling desktop? It changes. So we've got to be prepared for it, and you've got to keep the pulse on what's happening in the industry. Sign up for the app updates. Be sure you're going to the webinars. I love to listen to podcasts. There's a lot of great podcasts out there that you can listen to. The accounting podcast with David Leary and Blake Oliver, one of my favorites. They cover highlight from beginning to end of all things tech. Another thing that I would recommend is you can follow me on LinkedIn, Oh Such Joy. You can also follow our blog. I know that I work with Mike, who puts out a lot of great content related to our third-party apps and vendors. Um, but you may not have a full tech team in place like we do here, but it is important that you have a cheerleader. So even when we didn't have a tech team in place, I was still a cheerleader for technology out there. A lot of people in implementation are still cheerleaders for that technology. So having people in place that love that tech, that are willing to kind of learn it and be a cheerleader and kind of assist other staff members in-house is extremely important. Um, I also think you should have somebody monitoring the app. You want to make sure people are using it. Nothing's worse than having just half the company use the application when you're paying for it, right?
Right, right.
So, um, another thing I would recommend is to request a resource. If you're paying for the software, ask to speak to somebody on, even if it's just yearly, have a yearly check-in, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. You have a resource to talk to if you are having issues.
Definitely. And yeah, those are great, great tips, great resources for, you want to make sure you're using all those resources to make sure you're getting the most out of those applications too. So when and how should companies be evaluating their overall outlook on technology? Is that something that needs to happen often?
It should be happening all the time. So as I mentioned, you need to keep a pulse on what is happening in the industry as well as your technology. So if you have tech in-house and you hear the terms, well, we have a workaround for that, or Bob doesn't do it, he does it this way, those are all signs that your technology isn't being used. So again, if you have that cheerleader in-house, you can have somebody monitoring, are they using it? How are they using it? What are those things? Sometimes you need to go back and reevaluate what the technology is. And so when I work with the client, I usually say, what is happening to cause it to get to here? So what's the trigger and what's the end result? A lot of times they're doing 6 steps in the middle that they don't need to do, and a technology can come in and solve that. And it can actually save a lot of manual work and it'll save a lot of time. So I think that's very important. Another thing I would recommend when evaluating tech is, especially in-house, an all-in-one solution. Everybody loves an all-in-one solution. It's going to solve all these problems, but is it actually solving the 1, 2, 3 solutions that you really need it to solve, or is it just solving a quarter of those? So it's important to make sure you're looking at the technology and that it's solving the solution you have, or sorry, it's solving the problem that you have with the
Definitely. Yeah.
solution.
With a solution. Yeah,
With
definitely.
the
So
solution.
now we're going to discuss something that I know that you like to do, which is finding new apps for us. So how do you find and vet these new applications that you believe can help ADC and our clients out?
Sure. So, not every new app is great, and not every great app has been around forever. So, I actually demo about 2 to 3 apps a month. I have a long list of vendors that I look for. I meet these vendors at the show, I add them to my list. I actually have a calendar link for demos that I send out to people who ask for those demos. Um,
And what tips, so whenever you are demoing a new software, what tips can you give out for like things to look for when you're demoing?
sure. So, one thing that I look for is the person that's demoing the software, do they know it? Do they actually understand what they're demoing? So I will say for me, it's frustrating to have a sales guy on the phone that doesn't even know what the software does. He does. So I want to make sure that if you're demoing the software and you're not giving me the answers that I need, then I get somebody else on the phone. Maybe it's somebody from their implementation department to answer my questions. I think that's important. Um, the other thing I look for is, does it solve an immediate problem that we have? It may just be a shiny, pretty app. And so I'm just going to put it under shiny, pretty app list. And if a client wants a shiny, pretty app, I have it available to them. If it does solve an immediate need, though, a lot of times I'll go to a client. I have a client that has a problem. I'll go to them, say, hey, I found this new app. I think it might work for you. Are you willing to, put it in place and see if it works? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so it's just a matter of being flexible and bendy with technology, understanding that.
So what steps can businesses take in adapting to the life cycle of integrating technology applications within their workspace today?
Well, there's a couple things they can do. I know we've just talked about a couple. I'll reiterate some of them. So sign up for the app updates, making sure you're staying up to date with them. Status Gator is a great application to use because it does tell you if an app's down, if it's being monitored. So I definitely recommend signing up for Status Gator. Another one is make sure that you have somebody in-house that's a cheerleader for the application. I mean, having staff buy-in is huge. So, nothing's worse than putting that application in place and only half the company using it. So be sure that you are have that cheerleader in place. Another thing that I would say is don't buy the application without making sure you know what it does and that it syncs to your accounting system for all of us accountants out there. That's the big one. And, lastly, I'll just say this. I think it's very important to understand that technology changes and you have to be flexible with that technology. And sometimes it requires going back to day one and going back to the drawing board and starting all over. And sometimes you have to do that. You got to start at the beginning and just move forward with the technology.
Right. Awesome. So, great tips. I think there's a lot there that everyone can apply starting today. So, thank you so much, Joy, for joining us today and giving us a look into everything that goes into utilizing the right technology and optimizing that life cycle of that technology. So, it's been a joy having you on. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's episode of the Beyond the Books podcast brought to you by accountingdepartment.com. Also, everybody listening, remember to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. Drop a review to help us start climbing those podcast ranks as well. Once again, I'm Kevin Dry with ADC, and we will ADC you later.
See ya.